90 fucking years old.
Hey everyone, welcome to Thursday night, the BAC Story. Tonight, I'm on location. I'm out in Sacramento, and but I get to work with Peggy, who I love. Peggy, good to see you. And we do have a special guest from the a principal slash teacher now, but I want to hear her story. But anyways, Peggy, I'm going to let you introduce Michelle tonight. But first, how's your week? Anything exciting? I got to go down to where did I go? Fort Bragg,
Mendocino.
Montesino, unbelievable.
Mendocino, not Montesino.
Mendocino. Anyways, I have to go get my new T-shirt out of the car and put it on so I can remember. But unbelievable area. It was just gorgeous. But anyways, Peggy, I'll let you introduce Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. My thing's a little jumpy, so I'm going to let Peggy introduce you. But so glad you're here, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Michelle. I'm so excited because we've been trying to get together for about a year, maybe longer, maybe a couple of years. It's been crazy, and we have a principal in common. You know, a friend of ours, Boosie, right? Yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited to bring Michelle in because there's one of the biggest common themes of women drinking. It happens to be really related to the secondary trauma that we experience as first responders. So I think about it in terms of, in my world before I met Michelle, I thought about it in terms of being a social worker, which is what I did, or law enforcement, probation, ambulances, anybody that has that first responder role. But when I met Michelle, we really connected on the fact that she was a high school principal. And when you think about COVID and you think about the shit show that COVID was, then you think about the fact that for a lot of kids, which is, close to my heart as a social worker, that school was their only safe place for a lot of kids that were at risk of being abused. So we met. We've been trying to get together for a really long time, but when we did, we couldn't stop talking. So I don't think that either of us will have any trouble.
Well, we are so like first responders. What you do, Peggy, and I haven't heard Michelle's story yet, but the responders, everyone focuses on who they are responding to whom they're responding. But it's they carry it home. And then when I started hearing a little bit about Michelle, I thought, oh, we just think of taking care of the kids and what you do with your job. But to me, maybe you're taking it from them and putting it onto your own shoulders. And then everyone goes home because the kid or the child or whoever has been taken care of. And meanwhile, the responder themselves is the one that's carrying all this stuff. So it kind of a little bit of a eye awakening of how you even handle that.
Yeah. And just before I start in with the interview questions, is that I was one of those people. I'm not sure about Michelle's story, but I didn't drink until I was in my 50s. I drank, but it wasn't a big deal. So she has a different story than I do in that sense. However, what happened is that, I had a lot of childhood stuff I didn't deal with. And then I became a social worker, which I knew that social work was going to, I'm going to see child abuse and elder abuse too. I did both. And I knew I was going to see that. But what I didn't really understand, and this is why I didn't become a teacher, is the system trauma, right? That the way the government's set up, anytime the government gets involved, then I was also exposed to something like a kid discloses they're abused, and they're the ones that have to go live with a stranger. And that secondary trauma, it's called vicarious trauma or secondary stress trauma, STS, it gets in your DNA. And I just really quickly am married to a financial analyst. So I couldn't really come home and talk about what I was going through every night because he wanted to fix it. Like he'd just go, we'll go fix it. So I really felt like I was completely alone in the experience I had. Maybe I could talk to my coworkers, but when I got promoted to management, then I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it then. And so I found myself just totally numbing out with Sauvignon Blanc every night.
But here's my last thing I'm going to say, famous last words. But before Michelle takes it is, I hear you talking. When I got home after that, I don't want to talk about it. I just talking about it means I got to face it and deal with it again. I wanted to bury it with beer.
Well, I'm not sure I wanted to talk about it as much as I felt completely alone in it. And I felt like the only way that I could not think about it was, I mean, I didn't do it overnight, but all of a sudden, it was one drink, it was two drinks, it was three drinks, and fuck, why don't I just finish the whole bottle? Mm-hmm. That was kind of where I was at. So anyway, I'm very excited to have you, Michelle. You teachers, my daughter's a teacher. I have such a special place in my heart for the work that you do, especially with older kids. And take it away. How did you get here?
Well, I'm super happy to be here, honored to be here. I'm Michelle. I'm an alcoholic. I just celebrated 9 months of sobriety. And I have been told many times, whenever you're asked to share your story, you don't say no, you share it. With the purpose being that if it can help one other person, it is time well spent. So my story, I'm not going to go into, a drunkalog because it's all very similar. We all have very similar stories. Maybe we preferred a different type of alcohol, but it's all the same. But I had a wonderful childhood. I did not suffer any childhood trauma. And for a long time, I was so foolish. I thought, well, then I'm not an alcoholic. I mean, nothing terrible happened to me when I was young. I have a good life. But I was probably an alcoholic from the time I first drank at 15, unlike Peggy. And I was always, I was a blackout drinker. I didn't drink all the time, but when I did, I gave it my all. And I spent countless minutes of my life trying to piece together what had occurred. I was really good at being a detective in my own memory bank. But what happened for me is just over 5 years ago, I had weight loss surgery. And I did that because I really wanted to get healthy. And I was, morbidly obese. And I decided that I needed to do this. And I went to all the classes and talked to all the people. And I knew I wasn't supposed to drink. But I'm very hard-headed. And I said, well, transfer addiction, that's not going to happen to me. So it happened over time. But one thing is that after my weight loss surgery, I loved a really good IPA. I loved a glass of wine prior to weight loss surgery. But after my weight loss surgery, those really upset my stomach. So, it made sense to me to move to vodka, which was the only thing I drank when things got bad. So I call it the perfect storm or the big crash. Several things happened. First, weight loss surgery. Then I didn't realize it, but I do now, is I started to go through menopause. Yay. And then we had, I started working. I've been in education for over 25 years, but I started working with at-risk kids and absolutely loved it. They stole my heart instantly. I wanted to give them all the things that they didn't have that I felt I had growing up. And I wanted to save them all. I was the principal of a continuation high school in Davis. And I was just so passionate about saving them that I really lost myself. Side note, I was able to bring in a health center to that school because so many of them didn't have access to basic health care. Wow. So for free, they could see a physician's assistant. free birth control, free STI testing, referrals to other, to doctors, to optometrists, to dentists. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. But even in Davis, even, anywhere, there's kids who are in need of help. And so my drinking would increase.
Michelle, were you aware you were picking up their trauma and carrying it on your own?
No, I wasn't at the time. I will say that my first marriage was abusive. And for 9 years, I was in a real fight or flight mode. And I think in looking back at it now with a clear mind, I think I was actually seeking out high adrenaline positions because that's where I was most comfortable. And that chaos and that, chaos is the best way to describe it. And so I decided after that to work at a continuation high school in Rancho Cordova. And I thought that my students in Davis had high needs. I was put in a completely new universe because we not only had continuation high school kids, we had the community day school. So any 7th through 12th grader who was expelled from Folsom Cordova was sent to my campus. So I had 2 schools, real high needs. I mean, sad stories. And my drinking was, I was amping it up. And I've always been the type of person, I went to Chico State. So I got some good training there on how to drink, but played basketball. I've been competitive, and I've always been kind of a, whatever you do, go big or go home. And that included my drinking. My mom lived with me. She just moved out. So she was living with me at the time. She's disabled. And I had 3 children. And that's why I moved up here professionally. I live in Folsom because I wanted to be closer to home, but I wasn't closer to home. I was finding reasons all the time to stop at a bar on the way home, and I definitely wasn't present for them. But my mom had a health scare. Then we had a massive flood. We had 6,000 gallons of water leaking without us knowing it a minute. So we didn't know it was leaking until it started coming up through the floors. It completely tore up our house, and insurance did not cover it. So I was completely distraught about that. You don't mess with my home, period. And so we had my mom's health scare. We had, and please know, I don't mention these because they're excuses. They're just explanations for why, for many reasons, I was unable to deal with life without drinking more. So we had the weight loss, new job, my mom's health scare, the flood, and then the big COVID. And here I'm a fixer, I'm a saver. And I was forced to be a principal of 2 schools from a laptop, cross-legged on my bed, because at that time I didn't have any office. That was the quietest space. I'm trying to deal with staff who, COVID was so hard on education in general, not just the kids, but educators. It turned it upside down, inside out, and it wrecked a lot of people. And my kids at that time, they didn't have access to basic things they needed. I was terrified at how they were going to get through COVID. They came to school to eat. They came to school to have one adult care about them. They came to school for the most, just to have the most basic needs met, for safety. They would come to school to hide from situations at home. So I was obviously upset, and quite honestly, with COVID, in your yoga pants, doing work from a laptop in your bedroom. 5 o'clock didn't seem like 5 o'clock anymore.
What was your drinking before all of this stuff started to snowball? Well, I mean, I know you said blackout from the beginning, but was it I can live with it level?
I was a binge drinker. Definitely made an ass out of myself when I drank, but I would drink. It was, weekends, then it became Thursday and weekends, but I didn't think I had a problem at that time.
The reason I'm asking, because, if I can do a couple nights off a week, then that's justification. Obviously, I don't have a problem because it's only 4 nights a week or 3 nights a week that I'm making an ass of myself. The other 4, I'm making up for it. So I'm proving that I don't have a problem.
Well, and the other part of that is too that this is something I'm always curious about is no one knew I had a drinking problem except my immediate family. 0 people. And I'm wondering if it was because you were a principal, because and it happens to so many successful women, is that my colleagues were the absolute last people to know that I had a problem. And I'm wondering what that was like for you.
I think, there towards the end, prior to going to rehab, I think more people realized I wasn't doing well than I would have admitted at that time. But no, I didn't drink at work. I was definitely hungover. I'm sure it could, people could smell it, but that was a hidden blessing of COVID as well. When we slowly got to go back to school, we got to wear masks.
Right.
So,
did you feel the help you were doing? And another thing is, like, if I'm helping all these people, that gives me a reason.
It gives me an excuse.
It gives me not only, because this is one I struggle with, that in my journey and people I'm working with, is I work my butt off all day. I got a job that people are jerks. I got the whatever traffic. I deserve these drinks when I get home. And by helping all these other people, does it say, no, I've earned the right to drink 3 nights a week to blackout?
Absolutely. And honestly, I realize now that I was so overwhelmed and so depleted, and very hopeless, because I would go to work, and from the second I got there, I would, I gave it everything I had. I gave those students everything I had. And when I got home, I didn't have shit for my own family. And it didn't help that on my way home, I would visit my bar. That was something that I claimed I had to do to decompress. I had to separate my work day from my home. So I would go to the bar and I would drink, because then I could, be a better mom when I got home, which,
for me, that just added more guilt and gave me more reason to drink when I got home, because now I'm feeling guilty that I'm not giving my family.
But even your family, I'm sure, I don't know if this happened for you too, but for me, my family, up until they had it, up until the day they said, Mom, you need to do something about your drinking. Up until then, they actually gave me excuses to drink. Mom, you're tired. You have a really hard job. I get it.
My husband did. He was the biggest co-signer on my bullshit.
I'm writing that down.
But my daughter, she has no relationship with her father and has not spent any time over at his house, my ex-husband, since she was 13. And so I was her parent, and she hated me drinking. And she would tell me, crying, I don't have another parent. I need you to be here. And I would cry, and I would tell her I would do better. And I would know damn well that I was going to walk out of that room and keep drinking. So I tried, because of that, and because of some bad blackouts. My family was saying, why don't you try the sober thing? So that's the first time that I reached out to Peggy, and I tried it. I did the outpatient. It was on Zoom. My personal opinion is what a horrific idea, because I was really good at drinking vodka through a Zoom outpatient, recovery meeting. But I'm not saying everyone does that, but that's what I did, because I was absolutely not ready at all for recovery at that point. And I found an excuse to stop the outpatient program. I went to a few AA meetings. I'll never forget. I collected a 24-hour chip when I went to that meeting drunk. And so I went to a meeting later that week, and I raised my hand and said, I lied about this. I need to give it back. And gave it back. And then after that, I never went to another meeting until this round. Another thing I want to mention. So I had those events, and then it was a perfect storm. Then I had intense chronic pain caused by issues in my vertebrae in my neck. And they were giving me tons of pain pills or, prescriptions. I have never liked how pain meds make me feel. So I just didn't take them, but I started drinking even more because of the pain. And I actually had my spine fused on September 2nd, and was just out of control drinking. Pretty much, I would say I maybe didn't drink for 5 days after surgery, but I jumped in right where I left off. And that was near the end.
Peggy, how much of what you see dealing with people, because it sounds, and I'm not picking on Michelle, because everything I hear is I'm looking in a mirror, this is all me, but it's whether it's pain, whether it's kids giving me grief, whether it's all just thank you for the justification. None of the reasons that I'm hearing Michelle say why she drank, and Michelle, I'm not picking on you at all. It's me that I chose. I never once said because I enjoy it. It was because my work sucks, because of the trauma of this, because of the pain I'm in. I mean, it's much easier to have I could stand by external justifications versus than the guy in the mirror.
Well, the reason I drank is because I didn't want to feel shit.
Right.
And I would always justify it to everyone. I can't slow my mind down. I can't get it to slow down.
Right.
I can't, if I don't drink, I can't sleep. I'm so worked up. I really felt like there was just a hamster wheel inside my mind and my heart. And I just couldn't find any peace. And so, not until being in recovery, did the simple realization hit me that, okay, that, you were drinking to numb yourself and not feel, the bad stuff, but I wasn't feeling any of the good stuff because I was too damn drunk.
Yeah.
And so, yes, but so the blessing of that surgery and the timing is, shortly after my surgery, my husband, I remember exactly where we were. We were in our room, and he sat on the bed, and he's not a crier at all. And he had tears in his eyes, and he said, you are going to kill yourself, or you're going to kill someone else in your car. You need to stop. I want my wife back. Didn't give me an ultimatum, just said that. And so I started looking for rehabs because I knew I needed to be pulled from my environment. Living with my mom, we have a complicated relationship, and the job, all those things. I'm like, I am too sick to stop and be here. I need to be removed. So October 14th, I was dropped off at Duffy's Rehab in Calistoga. That's my actual belly button birthday. So I hopefully will never need another sobriety date because it's an easy one to remember. And I was going to stay for 30 days and everyone was very supportive. And I remember calling my children and my husband and I said, I need to stay longer. Because the real work happened in extended care after 30 days. And that's
Michelle, how did the telling them is tough. How did you tell coworkers, employers?
That's exactly where I was going with that.
Okay.
And I'm easily distracted because the hamster wheel is still in there. Because of my surgery and the complications that I had after the surgery, my medical leave kept getting extended. So surgery was on the 2nd of September and I had a note that had me off work. I can't remember now exactly how long, but I didn't have to tell my coworkers because they thought I was out only because of my neck surgery. I did tell a few that I was very close with. I did tell, my closest friends, my closest relatives. I did, oddly enough, go to my bar the day before I left and told all of them that I was going to rehab and that if they ever saw me in there again, that I'm begging them not to serve me. And
that's a cool story.
Yeah. They had decent food. I kind of, but I'm never going back in there again.
What were the reactions from some of the people that you got versus what you feared getting?
I'd like to say that I remember clearly what their reactions were. I know that most of them were supportive. And looking back on it now, because some have reached out to me since I've been public about my recovery, I think some of them wish they'd had the opportunity to go as well. But this is a bar that I went to every single day. My drink was waiting for me before I even got in the back door because I had to park in the back because I didn't want anyone to see my car. And I had made some friends there. So they were supportive, actually, from what I recall, and supportive. And then they bought me a drink. But I was so blessed that the timing was what it was, because I continued to get extensions. So even when I got home from rehab, I did not work at all last school calendar because of issues with my neck. And that allowed me to come home and really, really focus on my program.
That's great.
Without distraction, because I completely trusted my assistant principal, who was really supportive of my recovery. I didn't worry about it, and I really just disengaged from work.
There's probably so many people that, and I know there's rules about, anonymity and with the job of getting time off for health help, whatever that goes under. But the fact of not being able to get away from work or wanting people to is probably destroyed so many chances of sobriety.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, you were really lucky. I mean, yeah really lucky.
I don't know if I would have gone. I would have used it as an excuse. They need me. I can't, I can't let people know. I'll disappoint them. I could go on. But I'd kind of run out of excuses. And again, I'm very blessed. However, I now know that if I hadn't gone to rehab, even if the circumstances were different, or if I hadn't started recovery, whether it's rehab or whatever, wow, I would have either lost my job or drank myself to death or been in jail for hurting someone else. Mm-hmm. And so, hindsight and recovery, especially, is awesome. In my sickest days, I would have never gone, whoa, you're not going to die. I mean, I remember watching the show Intervention during COVID, or no, before COVID, excuse me, before my drinking even got really bad, and thinking, I think I'm going to end up being an alcoholic. And I have no idea why I thought that. My grandfather was an alcoholic. My dad was a blackout drinker, but I only saw him drink one time in my entire life. He knew what type of drinker he was, so he didn't drink around me. Mom didn't drink. But I somehow had a feeling that I was going to end up needing help. So I reached out to Jessica, who is my sponsor and who is my gift from my higher power, when I was in rehab, because I reached out to her during my first pretend try at sobriety, like I did Peggy. And she, in that phone call, said, do you need a temporary sponsor? And I was like, yes. So when I came home, I immediately jumped in, found a fellowship. The first one I went to, I told my husband when I got home, I said, if those are my options for meetings, I will drink again. It didn't feed my soul at all. Yeah. So I kept going to different meetings, and the American River Alano Club, they save my life every day. I'm so grateful for the fellowship and the friends I've met. I started working the program, and I'll tell you, I know this isn't specifically an AA discussion, but I didn't want any part of AA. I thought AA was a bunch of old white men. The book was written, no offense to any old white men, but the book was written in the 1930s, and there's a chapter on wives. Like, I'm not reading a book like that. I'm certainly not going to believe in a higher power. That's just not an option for me. So I did not think I was going to participate in AA, but slowly over time in rehab, I was a little more open, a little more honest, a little more willing. But one thing I didn't say is, when I got dropped off at rehab, lost a bunch of weight, took me 4 hours to produce any urine for the drug test. I was so dehydrated. I still didn't really think I was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I went to rehab to kind of reboot, stop drinking, make my husband happy, my children happy. And I still held on to the belief that I could drink like a lady someday. And after spending 5 days in detox, I was like, holy shit, I am an alcoholic. I was so sick. I decided I needed to be there for me.
What did you learn in rehab? What are some of I don't have a rehab experience, so I'm always curious about what in there. You said I was in there 5 days. Then I kind of realized I was an alcoholic. What are some of the things that people might want to know about your stint in rehab?
So I worry that some people think rehab is only an option for people with money. And that's not true. There are rehabs that are covered by insurance. But when I made that comment about the 5 days, I realized I was an alcoholic, not because of knowledge I'd gained from any sort of, group. I was so sick that I realized my body needed it to feel okay. And then they have you in groups. It was a 12-step rehab. They had us really, working through the steps, really everything from, surrender to higher power to looking at your character defects, your assets, taking your inventory and sharing those things with a small group. I have never ever met the level of acceptance that I did in rehab. You're all there. Your paths would not have crossed otherwise. You come from totally different experiences, and you all were in the same dumpster fire together, basically the same dumpster fire.
Addicted to an addictive substance. Go
Mhm.
figure, right?
Yeah. And it was everything there. It was alcohol to fentanyl to,
Okay.
you know, but I made some really good friends. I've lost some friends that I made there from suicide. A lot of people that I was in rehab with have relapsed. Some have gotten back into the room, some haven't. But rehab allowed me, and this is important for me, it was the only time in my adult life where I was only responsible for me and my basic needs. I had to worry about doing my laundry, bathing, and changing my sheets once a week.
Yeah, I want to go back to that, because I don't think people, you really did have the perfect storm, because you also had your mother, and we almost have to have a separate show about that sometime, because being a caretaker, I have no idea. My parents died when I was 19. But I see that so much around me now as I'm out in the recovery world and seeing what a challenge that is to be the caretaker. And so that is such a huge trigger. And I just don't think we talk about it enough, because it so was complicated.
It was very complicated, because my mom's a very strong person, like I am, and being an adult in my house and being a parent in my house was very difficult to do. And I'm not saying that it didn't come from a place of love, but there was a lot. And I knew, as I said earlier, that I needed to be away from my house and all my triggers. And I do want to point out that my triggers didn't make me drink. I chose to drink. And the reasons for that are complicated, but they're really not unique at all.
But you know what? It allowed me. I had to get away too. I had to break. I couldn't get one day, and I needed momentum. I didn't realize I needed a lot more that I got from rehab, but it wasn't that there was the triggers, but it allowed me to focus on what I needed to focus on versus focusing on don't drink because I'm staring at that bar. Don't drink because I'm sitting next to that person. Don't drink because I'm in that room where I always drank. It allowed me to just be able to put my focus on where I needed to be. So I
knew. Like, you don't say that enough. I think it's harder for men to do that, but that's exactly what it is. There's no, I mean, again, I'm not speaking from experience, but you're just looking at your basic needs for whatever time you're there. And I think that, we don't think that we deserve that.
Right.
Rehab allowed me the opportunity to strip away all of my excuses.
Yeah.
And really, really do some honest and sometimes painful work on myself.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. It is still one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. I was, dropped off on a Sunday. They told us on the phone that I could have visitors on Sundays. But because of COVID, they didn't allow that anymore. And I said, I'm not staying. I said, I can't not see my children for 30 days. So I'm not staying. I was crying. I called my husband. I wanted him to come back and get me. And I did it, thank goodness for FaceTime and that. But but it was terrifying. And I remember, because as I mentioned, I didn't believe in a higher power. I didn't believe in God. I've been raised with a Catholic God that, in my opinion, was a punishing God. And in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm going to get punished, I'm going to do this well. I remember being in the detox room, looked like a crappy hotel room in a single bed, in camouflage shorts and a t-shirt that said "Adulting is hard," and I curled up in the fetal position, and I did a combination of praying to, I don't know who I was praying to at that time, and saying, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this." And I eventually fell asleep to me just saying that. And each day, the fog lifted a little more, and
the higher power thing, and I'm a Christian, but has nothing to do with anything. But people say the higher power. Right now, talking to the two of you, I have a better chance of not drinking during this hour than I would by myself. So right now, you two are my higher powers. The support, Peggy's group, this side of alcohol is a higher power.
Yep.
So the higher power does not, in my opinion, it doesn't, it can mean God. It's to whatever works. But my whole thing is, I tried it when I relied on the power of Jeff, and I failed every time.
So can I say something about that? Because I know, as an educated woman doing what I did for a living, that connection is the best way to heal trauma. And I now firmly believe that connection is the best way to treat alcoholism.
I mean, Johann Hari says that, right? He says the opposite of addiction is connection, right? And,
absolutely. And I got really hung up on, well, who is my higher power? Like, when I pray, should I say God? No, I don't want to say God. Or and it doesn't freaking matter. And it changes for me all the time. Sometimes higher power is the sun on my face when I'm driving my car. Sometimes my higher power is the feeling I get when I now drive up to my in-person meetings, and I get that same relief that I used to get when I was pulling into the back parking lot of my bar. My higher power can be whatever it is in that moment. But I know without a doubt that if I did not believe in a higher power, whether it's changing or not, I would not be able to stay sober. And the main reason for me, just telling my story, is because that surrender and that being able to hand over the things that used to pain me, and the things I used to use as an excuse to drink, I now trust a higher power. I now believe there's something more powerful than me, because I was my own church and my own whatever. That has been life-changing, because that is what slows down my mind, and that's what gives me peace. And I don't get.
It's hard though, because for me, asking whether it was God or a friend, there's I'm per example, the ego. I don't want to tell you I'm failing. I don't want to tell you I need help. I've been, I'll do it. I'm okay. I don't need your help. Whatever. That was when I, playing football, lifting weights. I hated to ask, can you spot me? Because no, I'll get it myself. Mm-hmm. If I ask for your help, that means I'm not strong enough to do it myself, and I need you to help me get the weight up. So, the pride thing, but the higher power it's just, I
don't think anybody can have a higher power if you're drunk, right? So I think when you numb yourself out, whether it's God or higher power, or you go out like Michelle says, and I see, we live where there's snow, right? And there's snow, and the snow melts, and everything's dead, and it's ugly. And then 2 months later, we have pink and white and yellow and purple flowers everywhere. That's a higher power. and I can still believe in God. I can still believe in the higher power, right? That I have nothing to do with how those freaking flowers come up every single day, every single season, but they do. And I can't control that. I know for me, if you would have said, I would have heard a voice in my head. I would have said, you're full of shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, that day I was done, and it kind of reminded me of what Michelle just talked about. I heard this voice clearly that said, Peggy, you're done and you're going to be okay.
The thing for me is that I had, as Jeff touched on, I had to believe in something other than me because I was killing myself.
Mm-hmm.
I
and
remember
rely on something other than me.
exactly, because it just, I would look at myself in the mirror every single morning after I'd thrown up so violently that my nose would be bleeding, my face was puffy, I just looked like shit, my skin was awful, and I would tell myself, I would say, you are killing yourself, you've got to stop. And then I'd be thinking about drinking in the next half an hour. Yeah. Like that's the disease.
I mean, that's the addiction, right?
That's the disease.
And once you realize that you don't have, because we are strong women, Jeff's a successful person as well, maybe. And the thing is that it is hard to get over that one thing. There's one thing in my life I'm never going to be able to do, and that's drinking. And that was.
I always believed
that's not an easy thing for me to even think about. Really,
I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was possible, Peggy. I knew I had to, but I didn't think it was possible. And that's for me. And everyone's journey is different. Why I had to go into rehab because I couldn't even get day one by myself.
Yeah,
I didn't realize the accountability is so critical. But I didn't want to ask for any help. I didn't think anyone would have any help for me. The only one that's going to do it, and there is truth to this, that it is me. No one's going to do it for me. But it's
but I needed help finding the tools, right, so I could do it. And I was raised to believe, or maybe it's just who I am, mind over matter. If you work harder, if you work longer hours, if you try harder. Yeah.
It's and totally if you nurture nature, both.
Yeah. I mean, and the obsessive, thoughts. It's, again, I'm not unique in any of this, but it was very hard to surrender because I always thought that when you surrendered, it meant you lost and you suck and you failed. And so
great point.
I think for me, it's really helped, and I've seen it in the way you talk, is that both and thinking, right? My mind doesn't shut off, and my mind doesn't shut off. Like I have a really creative side to me, and so really, it is both. I'm kind of cursed with a mind that doesn't shut off, but then I've also been able, I've learned so much from sobriety. Like I never thought I would shut off. And now for, 367 days, I think I've been listening to a meditation, yoga nidra at night. And 99% of the time I go to sleep before it's over. It's a 30-minute tape. And I just can't believe that I can actually be super creative. And I can also talk to that part of my brain that says, you can shut down now. Or is that thought I'm thinking is stupid. It's not really true.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Yeah. I do see the difference. Sorry. It's like you had a husband that walked in, and of course I'm not trying to make this about me, but Jeff knows I always do, is that you kind of, he kind of came in lovingly for you. I'm not sure, Jeff and I haven't really talked about it. I had somebody that threatened me. So it's interesting. And I keep thinking in my brain, oh, maybe I would have stopped earlier if I had somebody to love me through it. I don't think so. If I'm really honest about it, I stopped when I was ready to stop.
Yeah. And I will say that if my husband had approached me in any other way that he did, it would have driven me right to the garage where I hid the vodka, or right to the bar, because I'm a
I don't
strong
think it
woman.
helped. Obviously,
And then
it prolonged it for me. And, and really the one person that, that changed my life was my daughter. When my daughter said, Mom, because up until then, my daughter, made every excuse in the book for me. You're a social worker, you see all this blah, 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 blah. And then one day she's like, no, you're done.
I like to say that I lost the privilege to drink. Yeah. And I've changed that because I don't view drinking as a privilege, because I know the definition of privilege. It was really fun until it wasn't. And I caused a lot of wreckage, as we all do. Again, not unique. And I'm still repairing that. I've made amends to a lot of my family and friends. I still have to make some amends, but in my opinion, I make a living amends to them, and that's by never drinking again, because I can't drink again.
Yeah. And we get to make living amends. My mom didn't. So I think about, all the people that passed away. Like, my daughter is actually going to be, all my kids really. My daughter was the main one that was upset about it. My sons were like, you're fine. It's because
same with my son.
So.
Hey, Michelle. So, I was going to, 2 questions. One, what was the key thing that made this work this time? And then we'll go ahead and answer that. And then I had one other one that I need to hear your answer on. But what was it accountability? Was it connection? Was it the big book? I mean, obviously not, but what was?
For a lot of different reasons, I finally became honest with myself and others, open-minded, and willing. I was willing to do it someone else's way. I was willing to try anything, because I knew, I finally accepted the severity of my disease and where it was going to take me. And I wasn't ready to die. And my children deserve the mom I am right now. And so, I think that's the biggest thing. It's 3 things. I didn't give you one, but because doing those 3 things allowed me to be open. Well, first, to be honest about the fact that I was an alcoholic and my life was unmanageable. Open-minded allowed me to start thinking about this idea that there was something out there greater than me, because I like to think that, I'm the greatest thing on the planet. But, and then the willingness, just don't drink today. That's it. Don't drink today. Look at what other people are doing that's working, and just be willing. And so I think those 3 things were the biggest.
And then the one that why I was thrilled you're going to be here, because you're going to have the answer now that I've been waiting to hear for my 2.5 years. You're right. But I'm assuming life still gets stressful for you. You used to deal with it with vodka. How do you deal with it now? Because I'm assuming you still come home with the same crap that you came home with before. How are you dealing with it now versus vodka?
So my sponsor likes to say that life keeps lifing, even when you're sober. And it sure the hell does. But I have a whole different set of tools to help me when things are too much. I also don't feel guilty for taking care of myself, even if that's just taking time to do nothing. I try to meditate. I'm horrible at it. I'm not going to give up, but I suck at it. I pray. I pray every morning. I journal every morning. I keep a gratitude journal. I have to go. My medicine is my meetings. And I make no apologies to anyone for going to those.
Because
if
if I can vent my tank that's ready to boil over by 5 o'clock, just in a, if I can vent that, I got a chance. It's when I sit there and just try to hold it in that it's going to blow. So the venting of that is the answer, but what's the solution to the venting?
Connection.
Let me ask you one other question, because we're coming to the end. Well, two. One would be, how do you feel now that you decided to go back in the classroom? Because we have a lot of teachers that are listening to you today. The TLC, the Luckiest Club that Jeff and I attend, have a shitload of teachers in there, and I think that the listeners would love to hear how you what made you decide to go back in the classroom. And then we'll just do that. And then
okay. So first of all, I want to make it clear. I didn't go back to the classroom because I thought it would be easier. I have always believed, since being an administrator, that no one works harder than our teachers. And I don't just say that to blow smoke. It's true. But I realized in rehab, as a matter of fact, that I didn't want to be the boss anymore. Because I hadn't been doing such a great job being the boss of myself. I wanted the chance to really only be responsible for me, because I've learned in the program that I can't control jack shit except for what I do. Mm-hmm. And so I chose to go back to the classroom, had a little meltdown yesterday. We're setting up our room. I'm realizing that I haven't taught in over 20 years. I have never taught 7th grade history. Technology is different. Everything's different. I'm like, I'm not good enough. I'm going to fail. And so I had to pull my car over and cry a little bit. And that's, I didn't drive to a bar. I let me feel what I was feeling, and I didn't beat myself up about it. So my decision to go, I am so happy to be back in the classroom. I feel lighter. I feel a little freer. I know it's going to be a hell of a lot of work for a lot less money. In a perfect world, it would be swapped, because I do. The teachers through COVID.
I can't. I just can't. So, I know my daughter decided to go back into the classroom after 8 years. And after 8 years of being an admin, and she had 26 kindergartners.
I'm going to have classes of 37 kids. And, but you know what is great is I now have the perspective of admin to hopefully make me a better teacher, a better colleague. And I have the perspective of sobriety. And that has taught me just how to live a better life and be a better human. And so I'm hoping those things, a new perfect storm, will make some really great things happen.
I love that. So is there anything that Jeff and I didn't ask you that you want us to know before we close?
No, I just, I have to say, when I started questioning if I was an alcoholic or not, that was my answer. And I wish I'd been brave enough to reach out for help. And it doesn't matter when we do it, when we decide we're done. It's just doing the work that goes along with it, because I never, ever in my life imagined that my life would be this beautiful.
And a couple comments from your kids.
What's that?
A couple of comments from your kids.
My son, I don't know if they're comments, but my son just wanted to spend more time with me. He said he loved me no matter what, the good, the bad. But we now cook together. Wow. And he plays his music and dances with me around the kitchen. That shit didn't happen. Awesome. That didn't happen when I was drinking. My daughter went through a horrible breakup, and I've been there for her. And I haven't been sitting there pretending to listen to her and thinking about when I was going to get my next drink.
Sure.
I'm showing my kids my real self, And I've told both of them that this is the mom they always deserved. And I'm sorry I wasn't that, but I am now. And we just got today, and
So good.
they've been amazing.
I love it.
People that people. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to get so much grief from Peggy on this, but people that say about, regretting how they were, and we get better. But I say, you know what? I used to poop my pants a lot, but I grew up and I learned to stop doing it.
And we're all very grateful.
But no,
on that
gratitude journal tomorrow.
We all we get better.
Yeah,
we get better and we grow.
Thank you so much. I hope you come back again. We can talk about the caregiver stuff.
Yes, definitely. Thank you
Michelle.
very much.
Stay on. Hey, everyone. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you again in a week. Take care.
Bye.